What is going on, Cuse Nation? Welcome to yet another edition of Orange Heat. My name's Giovanni Heater, as always, and thank you for joining me. Today we welcome former two-time National Goaltender of the Year, two-time Big East Goaltender of the Year, and 2011 Tewaaraton Finalist with 601 career saves in orange, former Syracuse Lacrosse goalie, number 15, John Galloway. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Impressive introduction, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I really appreciate it. But how are you keeping yourself busy throughout this whole quarantine?
Yeah, it's been a unique time. Obviously, we have our team down here we're trying to keep in touch with. And my wife and I, just got married 6 months ago. So we're testing it early on, spending a lot of time together, and fortunate enough to be enjoying the beach, enjoying the weather. It's 85 degrees and sunny today. And we're making the best of it and trying to use it as an opportunity to improve ourselves individually and collectively as a team. And it's actually, I think we started to make this our new normal. So we're adjusting as it goes.
You certainly have it nice down there in Florida with the beautiful weather and everything. It's just starting to get nice here in Syracuse. It's hitting about 55 every day the last couple days, so we're getting there for sure. John, I'd like to take us back to when you first started playing lacrosse. When did you first pick up a lacrosse stick?
I was fortunate to grow up in Camillus and, down the road from Syracuse University, where lacrosse is important. It's, kind of the I always equate it to like football in Texas for high school teams. And, you have a chance in a youth program to be able to pick up a stick early, especially with usually, older siblings playing or being able to watch Coach Masser and his varsity team. So I started playing around 5 or 6 years old, really got into it at Show Park with the youth program. And from there it really took off.
So when did you first make the move to the goalie position? I don't know about you, but I didn't start playing goalie until I was in about 7th or 8th grade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I begged my mom. For some reason, there was a young man named Jeremy Platt who was the starting goalie for the West Genesee team, and he used to be the guy that would make a save and then try to run it up all the way up the field. And I just thought that was so cool that you could do both. So early on, I started playing. When you're a youth, you kind of play all positions, and I really gravitated to it. And my mom forced me to wait a year or two before she bought me a stick, as any goalie's mom will tell you. They always hesitate to put you in there. And
for sure.
Finally I made her believe it was what I wanted to do, and the rest is really history.
Can you talk about playing for one of the most prestigious programs in high school lacrosse? And of course, that's the West Genesee Wildcats.
Yeah, that program is so unique in that you start the development of being on the varsity team when you're 6 or 7 years old. You go through the process of playing for former players, and then in middle school they have a curriculum from 7th grade all the way to 12th grade. And there's a style of play, a fundamental basis, a foundation, and really it's a level of discipline and expectation of how you live off the field. That's really what I learned at West Genesee, was how to be a good person, how to make sacrifices off the field socially. And Coach Masser had such a great understanding from the parents of how important this was. And I think that if you played in that program, you were going to have to give something up, and we all knew it was worth it on the end.
This is kind of a personal question more for me. I played goalie at CNS. Do you remember at all playing CNS? Any good battles with them back in the day? One of the most competitive sections. You had FM, Liverpool, Baldwinsville, the city, CNS, and Jenny. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, CNS was fantastic when my time coming up. I remember those games vividly. I remember Prayano in goal, and Lococo and Jeff Gilbert and Nick Bloomer. I mean, it was a really talented group of guys, and we had battles. We played them in the sectional championship my junior year, and a lot of those guys were in my class. I was fortunate enough to play with Jeff Gilbert in college, and play against Nick and Nick later on in my career. Played Empires with them, and so there was a great rivalries there. Jamie was always really good in the cage that time of his career, and it was always a very unique, competitive. There was a little bit of John in that game always, and I remember CNS always being really deep talent-wise, but we were fortunate enough to get through them. But I always remember that always being a concern.
That's really cool to hear. We're trying to get back to that point, John. I've never had the opportunity to beat West Jenny, so maybe next year will be the year. But now, looking back, can you walk me through your recruiting process a little bit? What other schools were involved besides Syracuse, or was Syracuse your dream school from day one, living right here in Central New York?
No, it wasn't. My heart was set on UVA. I thought that that was where I wanted to end up. And, I was the number 2 ranked goalie in our class that year, and Adam Gittleman was number 1. He committed about a week before I was scheduled to take my visit down there. So that, obviously took that off the table. And then I started to narrow it down. I fell in love with Cornell. I really enjoyed the academic opportunities there. In the midst of my recruiting process, Coach Janowski had just got the job at Duke. So that was something that was really enticing. But ultimately, it was really academics that kind of put the final nail in the coffin. I wanted to be a broadcast journalism major. I wanted to go to Newhouse School, and that was what you're doing is what I wanted to do when I was growing up, and that was really the final string for me to make sure that I chose not just based on lacrosse.
That's really cool to hear. I actually never knew that about you. That's really awesome. So, at West Tennessee, you had the opportunity to play alongside your future Syracuse teammates. That's Ryan Barber, Tim Desko, excuse me, Colin Donahue, and Joe Fazio. So, how did your chemistry play in high school together transfer to your days at Syracuse?
It was really unique. Obviously, playing a goalie, sometimes those relationships, especially because most of those guys were on the offensive end. I mean, I played with Colin and Timmy since I grew up as a little kid. Colin was at Rutgers previous before he transferred in. Ryan Barber and I were always really close, but those guys were all offensive minded. So there wasn't, it was nice to have comfort in the locker room, especially as a young guy in a locker room like that. But I think that it was challenging, just because we didn't spend too much time together. But what you find is just the amount of upstate guys that are on that team provides you a level of comfort, and it's really almost. I almost feel bad looking back on what guys from outside of Central New York must have felt like coming in, because there were so many of us. We kind of had an already built-in family between us, and it allowed the transition to be really smooth, really comfortable, and I thought played into a lot of our success early on.
You talked about a very smooth transition for you. What were your first days at Syracuse like off the field?
They were fantastic. I remember the first night we went out with the team and had a chance to socialize. And what I'll tell you, and I tell our guys all the time, I think a big part of our success in Syracuse, and a big reason why that's continued, is there are no class divisions. You walk onto that campus as a freshman, and as long as the senior class has a great understanding for the tradition of the program, there's no hazing, there's no high level expectations of the freshmen. It's more so, hey, you're here to help us win a championship, so we're going to make sure you're comfortable enough to do that. And obviously there's always a little bit of bickering back and forth, but that's part of being on a team. That's what makes it fun. And I can tell you confidently, when I got on the campus, Danny Brennan, Steve Brooks, Evan Brady, Spencer Van Schack, all those guys, Pat Parrott, Steve Panarelli was still on campus at the time. They took us under their wing, and it was like you were part of it from day one.
You were really thrown into the fire as soon as you got on campus, starting all 18 games in your freshman season. So did you feel ready to take over that opportunity?
I think, in your mind, you convince yourself that you're ready in the moment. I think that there was times throughout the season where you had your doubts. I remember playing at home with the first time and really being unsure if I was ready for that speed of the game. And obviously we had a chance to play them again later on in the year. And, what I give great credit to Coach Desko is he gave me that chance to get comfortable, even in games where maybe I wasn't playing to the level that I expected. He didn't pull the string. And I think if he ever did that, that may have given me a little bit more doubt in myself. But I was able to, like you said, go through all those 18 games. So once we got to the Final Four, I didn't feel that, I had to look over my shoulder, and ultimately allowed us to get over the hump at the end.
As we both know, John, the goalie position is a true leadership role on the field, conducting the defense and really being a contributor on the offense as well, talking things through with your team. Typically, your goalie's a team captain. So how did the upperclassmen respond to you taking on that leadership role as a freshman?
Yeah, you have to jump in head first, and that's something that I did. I did not want to sit back and wait my turn to be a leader, and I tried to get my voice heard early on. And you have to learn there's a time and a place, especially as a freshman. But I think if you can lead with your work ethic at first, lead with action, then guys will start to listen to your words. And that's what I figured out early on, that these guys were going to find out how hard I was willing to work to make this successful. And as soon as they saw that, and as soon as they saw that was consistent, they started to listen to the things I had to say. So I had, again, a great relationship with the guys in front of me. I was very fortunate to play in front of senior laden defensemen. I mean, Kyle Guadagnolo, Evan Brady, I had senior level captains in front of me, and they allowed me to make mistakes, to get comfortable, to pick me up when things were not going well. And ultimately it was their leadership that allowed me to find my voice.
John, can you talk a little bit about what it's like playing goalie inside the Carrier Dome? Obviously, the seats are kind of the same color as the ball. How difficult is that?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot that's said about that, and I honestly, people always say, well, you're used to it because you practice there all the time. That's not really the case. We only usually practice there maybe a day before a game if we can, if there's not a basketball game the day before. So, you just try not to even talk about it. I think that the away teams, part of the lure of the dome is people just talk about it a lot. They talk about how challenging it is to play, how loud it is. I think it ultimately psychs some teams out. And, for us, it was always just, hey, this is home turf. It's one of the coolest places you'll ever play in college lacrosse. And, you better not make any excuses about it. And that was certainly how I felt as well.
So we talked about being thrown into the fire in your freshman season. 3 overtime games that season against 3 different rivals. You had the Georgetown Hoyas, John Hopkins, and Virginia in the NCAA semifinals. So how were you able to stay composed during those high-tension situations at such a young age?
Yeah, I mean, the Georgetown game, if you ever have a chance to go back and watch it, was one of the most incredible games.
I
Brendan
have, for
Loftus,
sure.
yeah, it was incredible. Brendan Loftus essentially put our team on his back, and that was a game where a lot of people had doubt that we were going to be able to make it happen. Stephen Brooks scored really a sudden death time running out goal at the end of the game, and really a miraculous clear that led to a goal and allowed us to stay in it and get into overtime. So I think in games like that, you just feel like you have nothing to lose. The Hopkins game, I can tell you confidently, was such an important game for our program just because it was the first time we had won at Homewood in a handful of years, and I know how much that meant to Mike Lavelle and Stephen Brooks, and obviously for Stephen to score the game winner in that game. And then, UVA, there's nothing like it. I mean, we were down by 3 goals. Mike Lavelle, again, another senior, just put the team on his back when we needed him. There was a couple of shots that could have went in, shots that hit the pipe, and fortunate enough to be able to find a way at the end of that game to win. And again, just great credit to a guy like Mike Lavelle, who just knew the moment was not too big and was able to find a way to get it done and put us into Championship Monday.
Was there ever a team that you really geared up for a little bit extra, a little bit special? For me, it's playing West Genesee and it's playing against FM every year. For you, was there a team, was it UVA because you wanted to go there in your recruiting process? Was it obviously Johns Hopkins? What team was it?
Yeah, I think UVA. I mean, there's so much media surrounding that game leading up to just the high scoring affairs, the 22-21s, and it was always early on in the season. So you knew that win or loss, it wasn't going to define your season, but it was going to set the tone for it. And that was one of the few teams we did not have success with a ton early on. And I just recall my senior year, I think being the first time we beat them in the regular season in the Carrier Dome. And normally that game was neutral site. So it was a special moment for us to be able to get over that hump. But, just the style of play in that game was always really exciting. You knew you were going to see a lot of shots as a goalie. You knew that, you might give up 12 goals, but if you made 15 saves, that was going to be okay. And allowed everybody to take a deep breath and be willing to take some more chances.
Can you talk about playing in your first ever national championship game as a true freshman on Memorial Day weekend?
To be honest, you don't even think about it when you're there. I can tell you now, obviously looking back as an 18-year-old, just to have that opportunity is once in a lifetime. But when I think about the moment, you were just so focused on winning. You were so focused on winning a championship for Evan and Mike Lavelle and Kyle Guads and the seniors. And you didn't even think of it as, hey, there's 48,000 people here. And, looking back, I just think, man, I can't believe I was able to handle that. And there was a back and forth in that game, but I think ultimately the destiny of that team was so special. It was so clear that we were supposed to win that. I don't know if there was ever any real nerves. I think the UVA game, once we got through that, was really important. And once we got to Monday, we felt like Hopkins really knocked off Duke, which was the top team in the country at the time. And we felt like we just had to stick to our game plan and be true to ourselves. And we were able to, despite, Rabel's fantastic effort, I think we had control of the game really the whole time.
What is that feeling when the buzzer goes off and you are a national champion?
Again, just you don't. What I would give to just go back and just soak in that moment, it just goes so fast. Being able to celebrate with your teammates, being able to run that trophy around the field. It's a big reason why I'm into coaching. I don't think you can find that emotion anywhere else in any other industry. And to be able to hunt for that feeling every year is something that I think we all take a lot of pride in sports. And, I don't really, and I tell this to my team all the time, I don't have memories of that game. You really do kind of black out. You're so involved in the moment. It's hot, it's intense. I remember the bus ride home. I remember how you're just elated. It's almost relief at a point, but you're just so elated that you can take a deep sigh of, relief and really enjoy it with your teammates.
Was there any correlation? Was it any more special winning a national championship, or was it the same kind of feelings as winning a state championship at Jenny?
I mean, obviously, on that level, there is a different feeling. I say all the time, I wish I could go back so badly and win another state championship, because you feel like you let West Genesee down when you don't. And, we only won one my sophomore year. We lost in the state championship my junior and senior year. And, but when you're in front of 50,000 people and the talent level is so rich, and it's so hard to be able to do that. And take it for our team. I mean, we thought my senior year, we had the best team in the country by a mile, and we weren't able to win it. And I think you realize you can't take anything for granted at that level.
What was the mentality going into that next season, coming off the heels of a national championship? And how did that differ from the mentality going into the season that you did win the championship?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of stress on a lot of the guys our first year. So it was very intense. I think that next year, because we had different leaders, we had Pat Parrott, Dan Hardy, Kenny Nims. I mean, those guys were a little bit lighter personality-wise, and we had gotten that monkey off our back, but we knew the talent was still really strong. And then, when you add in pieces like Cody Jamieson and Sid Smith, all of a sudden the game just becomes a little bit more relaxing. And I would say that season, in a way, was almost, I don't want to say easier, but it felt more comfortable because we knew what we were capable of. And, again, once you get to the Final Four, you never know what's going to happen. I think once we got to Duke, we realized we could put our foot on the gas. And then obviously the Cornell game came down to the wire, but you saw a level of confidence and swagger that I think was built on the year before.
That Cornell game, I think, is the most special Syracuse lacrosse game ever. So in 2009, the story was exactly the same as we talked about, the Orange throttling Duke in the semifinals, then winning the national championship ultimately against Cornell. Can you walk me through that roller coaster of a 2009 national championship game, the comeback, the overtime, all of it?
Yeah, again, it's hard to describe. It's hard to remember. I mean, the emotions were so high. When they scored the 9th goal, I think there started to creep in a little bit of doubt. But we knew we were going to be able to punch through. We had a lot of opportunities that game that just didn't fall our way for whatever reason. And again, we had great leadership. We had great athleticism. Guys like Matt Abbott were just not giving up. Joel White, same thing. I mean, all the people that were involved in that last play, I think were just a big piece of it. Matt Abbott, Joel White, Kenny Nims, and at the end, Cody Jamieson, Pat Parrott started the first, the carry to score against the zone, to Dan Hardy, to Cody. I mean, the right people touched the ball at the right time. Sid Smith had one of the most timely takeaways that you could ever have in a national championship game. So it was just specific moments from really special people that allowed us to get to that point.
Do you remember being on the other end of the field? I know you talked about blacking out during these games, but do you remember seeing it, the takeaway on the ride? Then, Matt Abbott gets it, and somehow he gets it to Kenny Nims on the crease, and he puts it in with 4 seconds left. What was that feeling?
Yeah, again, elation. I mean, we knew our backs were against the wall, and we knew we needed something special. And, those guys, as they did all year, delivered. And, hard to put into words what you feel like, and even harder to put into words when Cody scored what you felt like, just to be able to like you said, it's got to be one of the greatest lacrosse games to ever, in that atmosphere at that level, for that, for the trophy. I said it after the game, and I still say it today, there should be a movie of how that game unfolded. And it really was that picture perfect. Everything had to go our way, and it did.
John, your junior season was one of your best personal seasons ever, number-wise, of course, but the dynasty was cut short after a huge upset lost in the first round to another rival, the Army Black Knights. So what was the mental journey of that season like, and how did you deal with the disappointment losing round 1 inside the Dome?
Yeah, for me, that year was hard because, I took so much time in the offseason to really improve on my game. I think the first 2 years we leaned so much on the offense and really good defense, but I wanted to become a part of the cog. And, that was probably the first year I can tell you there was at times in practice where I just didn't feel like I was going to get scored on. And that's, for any goalie that gets that feeling, it's short lived, but it's amazing when you have it. So, I think that we knew we had some flaws on that team. We knew that we weren't clicking maybe on all cylinders. I will say I think teams started to figure us out a little bit and to slow it down on us. And defensively, we just had such a special group that offenses knew that they couldn't, they couldn't score consistently, so they were going to eat the clock a little bit, and that carried into our senior year. And I think we just didn't handle that well emotionally. I think we got frustrated versus coming up with ways to be able to create opportunity for us. And we won a lot of games that year, but we won a lot of games 6-5 and 5-4, and it was very similar for our senior year as well. So I think that we just didn't adapt, and it was heartbreaking. I can tell you, there's nothing worse than letting people down who have such high expectations for you. So that was a really big challenge for us, and I think that we just have to we had to bounce back a little bit better. I think we just kind of, again, expected, because we had such a strong senior class the next year, that it was going to get better. And I think we're all kind of kicking ourselves nowadays, wishing we could have that year back.
John, you answered my next question for me. I was going to ask you what the differences were between that 2008 and 2009 team to that 2010 and 2011 team, but it seems like I really don't have to. So the Tewaaraton Finalist in your season, the second goalie to ever do so, joining Trevor Tierney of Princeton in those acclaims. So how did it feel, really revolutionizing the goalie position, as that award is typically given to the best leading goal scorer in the country? And to give people at home a little bit of a tidbit that are Syracuse fans watching this that don't follow lacrosse as deeply, the Tewaaraton is your Heisman Trophy. It is the best lacrosse player at the collegiate level in the country. John, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I can remember the day specifically when we found out that we had been chosen. It was really special because, Joel was my roommate all 4 years. He continues to be my roommate at the professional ranks, and for both of us to get chosen, for 2 of the 5 finalists to be Syracuse guys, and we all knew we were not going to win. Rob Pinello had that award wrapped up before we even went to DC, but to have the experience. I mean, to be 2 defenders. Joel, who the year prior won midfielder of the year and was a Tewaaraton finalist as a defenseman, me as a goalie to be able to make the top 5. I think that we understood and appreciated how much that meant to us individually, and we just really enjoyed the ride. And we knew, again, Rob was going to win it, but we enjoyed every second of that. We soaked it up. Jim Brown was there. I mean, it's just the best of the best in the sport, and that is still a really important honor that we have, that we carry, that I don't think we'll ever forget.
You were on the athletic director's honor roll all 4 seasons at SU, and you also made the Big East all-academic team as well. So how did you balance being both a student and an athlete with games on the road, things like championship weekend, obviously some obstacles to overcome besides just being a typical student at Syracuse?
Yeah, I'll tell you, in my professional industry now, when I apply for jobs and have gone through the interview process, and when I got this job, I mean, a big reason why I've been able to advance is more because people see that I was a 2-time academic All-American. And I think that that's something important for kids to know. That's carried me a lot farther than my ability to play at this level, at coaching or whatever industry you choose. And, to be able to talk about that and the balance that you have to have at the college level. I loved school. That was really it. That was the simple reason. I loved going to Newhouse. It was a fun place to be. It was where, people had dreamt to go and to be part of that. And exactly. And it's a really special place. I mean, the professors are great, and the kids they're very different than what I experienced in Manly. And I was the only guy on the lacrosse team in there. So for me, it was like this separate little world that I had that, again, I just really enjoyed exploring. And, I wasn't great at everything, and it was challenging at times. And, there was times I had to reconsider some certain classes based on the lacrosse schedule, but ultimately it was such a enjoyable time to wake up, go to Newhouse, have an experience, and then be able to go back to the field house and have a completely different one that I thought I thrived in and was really enjoyable to be part of.
It's funny you say that. Sometimes I feel the same way. I do theater at school, and so it's kind of the same thing when I'm, with my musical friends and I'm on the stage, and then an hour later I got to go to lacrosse practice. It's the same kind of mentality. But you said you were a broadcast digital journalism major as well?
Yeah, broadcast journalism.
That's awesome. That's really cool. John, you went on to play big years in the Major League Lacrosse, of course, for the Rochester Rattlers. How did that differ from your college days, and what was so special about it in its own kind of way?
Yeah, playing in Rochester, I think we played for 6 or 7 years before we moved to Dallas. It was amazing in that A, I played with a lot of my former teammates. B, I was able to play close to family still. If my family was still be able to come watch me play. And then finally, I was able to build a whole new level of relationships. I mean, those guys are the ones I'm closest to now. Now we're the Chrome and the PLL, and we talk every day. And we did a good job with Coach Sudan, who ended up becoming our coach my second year in the league, creating this family atmosphere that has kind of become like the talk of the story amongst professional lacrosse. How close our team is, because you only spend 48 to 72 hours with each other every week. So really, really unique experience I've had. I feel like I've been so blessed to be a part of this team. We haven't got over the hump. We've been to 3 championships and we haven't got over the hump, but at the same time, I can't tell you, our summers are our most favorite time of the year, just because we get to be with each other and we talk year round. I mean, we Zoom call, we FaceTime, we group meet. I mean, it's a really, to be 31 years old and to have a group of guys that you're still that close with, I think is really unique. And professional lacrosse has given me that chance.
You mentioned the PLL, so how does that differ from the MLL, and what went into that move for you?
Yeah, they're doing a great job just making lacrosse important. And obviously the salaries increase and the health benefits and just the treatment of the player. It is very different. It's very media driven. So that's something that's unique to, the old school guys. I don't think that we fit in really well with that model of social media and kind of creating your own individual brand. That's never who we were as a team. So we've struggled with that transition, but I give credit to the Rabel brothers and the brand they've created, because this thing has taken off. Obviously, with what's going on in the world right now, it's all scary, but their innovation, their willingness to adapt to the game and how it used to be versus how it could be, and the TV opportunity and the revenue that provides. I mean, there's talk of actually having the opportunity to have a lacrosse career 10, 15 years down the road. And I think that we've never thought of that. And now that kids are going to have that dream, I think it's going to change our sport as well.
John, I had the opportunity last summer to work with Bob Deegan in instruction with goaltending. Can you talk about him being your coach at West Genesee and now again with the PLL Chrome?
Yeah, Coach Deegan was he was such a mentor of mine coming in high school. I mean, we spent so much time together, whether it was watching film or talking strategy before games or obviously on the field. He was just a mentor of mine from the first day we started working together. He always gave me a chance. He was very transparent. I think that's something that was really important for me, as he never sugarcoated it. He never told me how great I was. He just got me better every day. And obviously it was so unique to have a chance to work with him again last summer. To be able to rekindle that relationship and just to kind of revisit life at a totally different perspective. When you're 16 years old, you see life one way. And when you're 30 years old and you get to talk to your coach, you talk about your family and your wife and your job and, the struggles that you go through. I mean, it's just such a different relationship. And it was really unique to be able to share that with him last summer.
You had the opportunity to play overseas in the national games for Team USA with some of the best lacrosse players in the world. What's that like?
It was obviously the cherry on top of my career. If it weren't for the PLL, I probably would have hung it up after that. Because there's nothing like making Team USA. I mean, that's probably the biggest challenge, especially in our country with the depth of talent. B, being able to play in that atmosphere in the Middle East and Israel against Team Canada. And then obviously to be able to win a gold medal, which isn't easy anymore. It's not something that's kind of, a lot of people assume that USA is going to do that. It's not the case anymore. So just to have a chance to play for Coach Janowski, to experience that with the team, to be voted as a team captain, and it was one of my greatest athletic honors, because that was, by 22 of the best lacrosse players in the world. So a lot of special moments that came from that, and that'll be a memory that really lives with me for the rest of my life, especially just because of the gravity of the situation when we were there.
John, something I wondered every weekend as I watched you play in the PLL, not that they overlap necessarily, but how were you able to juggle your coaching career with still playing?
Yeah, it's a challenge, but at the same time, it allows me to empathize with our guys. It allows me to kind of understand what their life is like in their shoes. And for me, you can recruit 100 days in a row, you can recruit 60 days in a row. It doesn't really, I mean, you see a lot of kids, and I don't think going to every event is the recipe for success. I think being really thoughtful with what's important to your program and understanding where you need to be, and trusting your assistants and making sure that you have a life work balance is really important as well. And it allows me to travel the world and see a lot of things, and have and share experiences with our incoming guys that maybe some other coaches can't.
Speaking of coaching, you are now the head coach, if anybody that doesn't know, at Jacksonville University in the SoCon Conference, and you have been the head coach since 2016. How did your coaching journey begin, and how did it progress to where you are now?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to go down to Durham and work for Coach Janowski at Duke my year after college, and that was really my introduction to this industry, and how important it could be. And I fell in love with it that year. And soon after that, I was given an opportunity to be the defensive coordinator at Providence College in the Big East. And that was an amazing opportunity that, I never thought I'd go to Rhode Island, but, one of the assistant coaches at Duke got the head coaching job, and I followed along with him, and spent 4 years there learning my craft and learning how to run a team, run a side of the ball, and being given a lot of responsibility there. And when Jacksonville called me in 2016, I felt like at that time I was prepared to be able to run my own program, and jumped in head first, learned a ton, made a ton of mistakes, and I couldn't be more excited where I am now. We got cut short 3.5 years in, but we've built a facility. We've created an identity of a culture in our program. We've recruited kids nationally. We have 19 different states, and we have a group of guys coming back without anybody leaving. People have started to fall in love with what we've created, and now it's all about finishing through and winning a Southern Conference championship and playing in the tournament. But I don't think we're afraid to play anybody in the country, and that's really what we were hoping to do in year 4, with obviously this upcoming year being the first time all of the classes are our recruits.
John, a little bit of a speed round for you before we wrap it up here. Was there any player in your days on the field that really gave you the best fight as a shooter?
Yeah, Ben Rubier and Danny Gladding, both Virginia attackmen. They were always just fantastic, and it was always a really challenging game against those two guys.
How much has the game changed since you played in college? Obviously, it's been huge with a team like Denver winning the national championship. It's grown so much. So can you touch upon that?
Yeah, it's the talent pool has gotten greater. Geographically, it's spread, and obviously the shot clock has changed how coaches can play, and how you have to scheme. But obviously the top teams are still at the top, but I think you're starting to see teams like us be given the opportunity to be competitive, which has been exciting for the sport.
Absolutely. What advice would you have for any kid out there that lost their high school season this year, or college season as well, during this crazy time?
Yeah, I would tell you that right. Life's unfair, and it isn't fair to any of us. And the solace that we could take, the silver lining, is that this impacted everybody the same way. It didn't. Nobody survived this spring and had a lacrosse season unlike someone else. And I think that the kids that utilize this opportunity of 5 months of being on your own to reflect, to learn, to read, to get stronger or faster, to play wall ball every day. I mean, you can really differentiate yourself. This is not an opportunity that a lot of kids get. And, they're going to come out of this 2 different ways. Either it's kids sitting around playing video games all day, or kids that actually got to work, whether mentally or physically. And that's the challenge that we've given our guys, is this is such a unique, this may never happen again in our lifetime. And how you take advantage of this situation is crucial to what kind of product you have coming out of it.
Lastly, John, this one is for the fans out there. What does Syracuse mean to you?
I mean, it's home. My family's still there. Every time I land in that airport and get off the plane and walk through the tunnel, I mean, there's just something special about the people there. There's something special about the university. There's something special about the connections that you have still. You can go into a bar or a restaurant or a barbershop and know somebody. I think that there's nothing like that. And it's a place where you can feel comfortable. You can feel like you can be yourself. And that's obviously where I grew up, where I played, where I developed it to become a man. And I'm just so thankful for that place. And obviously a huge fan of just the university in general. Every chance I get, whether it's a football game, a basketball game, if I catch a field hockey score, I'm always rooting for the Orange every chance I get.
Awesome, John. Thank you so much once again for coming on. I've had the opportunity lately to interview some SU basketball players, football players, but nothing really has hit home like this one, being a lacrosse player myself. And I can remember sitting in the dome when I'm 5, 6, 7 years old and hearing the announcer say, "Saved by Galloway," So this was kind of a really cool opportunity, and I really appreciate you coming on here today.
No, I appreciate you having me. You're doing an amazing thing, and the product is really high level. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Syracuse fans, for John Galloway, my name's Giovanni Heater. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time.